This is a snail, and this is also a snail. The only difference is, one takes 64 seconds to move an inch, and one takes 64 seconds to stop your heart and kill you. On land, the scariest thing a snail can do is leave a slimy trail on your porch, and then they accidentally get killed by touching a grain of salt. But in the oceans, snails do the killing. They eat prey, they stab prey. The snails in the water become so deadly that they're capable of taking out full-grown humans with their venom, and they're even able to survive grains of salt. These snails are all classified as real snails, but despite that, they have completely different roles in the ecosystem. Why is it that only snails that live in the water are allowed to become monsters? What exactly is happening in the water that makes a slow and steady snail body viable for a predator? And what is actually in these aquatic snails that makes them so unbelievably deadly? To find out why this is happening, let's take a look at the most obvious example of a snail that is essentially the living version of that immortal death snail. This is the cone snail, and as you can probably tell from the name, it's shaped like a cone. But this is the worst cone ever. Cone snails are not just some super deadly, but only for a snail. They're actually deadly, and they have arguably the deadliest venom on the entire planet. A single drop of its venom contains enough conotoxin to kill over 20 fully grown humans, and the actual amount required to stop your heart is roughly 0.029 milligrams. Remember that grain of salt that would kill a snail if you poked it with one? This is that grain of salt compared to how big 0.029 milligrams is. Yeah, you're cooked. And if you guys love the ocean, Fishing Clash is a game that actually feels satisfying and relaxing, but can also be competitive. Fishing Clash drops you into real fisheries all over the world, with hundreds of species to catch, upgrade, and collect. From chill shoreline fishing to full-on boss hunts where you're catching massive fish for serious rewards. What I like is the progression. You're upgrading rods, lures, and even your boat, unlocking new fisheries and getting stronger every session. It's relaxing when you want it to be, but there's also real competition. There are quick challenges, clan versus clan fishing battles, and boss fish events where timing actually matters. You cast, hook, reel, upgrade, and you feel the difference immediately. New rods, better lures, upgraded boats, everything stacks. If you are a new user, download this game by using my link in the description or scan the QR code. Enter my gift code Beyond the Blue and get your $20 value reward for free. It's an awesome starter boost. Huge thanks to Fishing Clash for sponsoring this video. So why did these things become so deadly? What could they possibly have evolved for to need this deadly of a venom? Well, they're actually not hunting alligators, and while they could kill you, and very easily, they're not actively hunting you as prey either. Thank goodness. What they actually hunt are mostly just small fish that they can inject once and swallow whole. They couldn't really consume something much bigger, because while they're big for snails, they aren't that big. But this still doesn't explain why they'd bother to evolve venom to kill a bear when they only kill little gobies. Well, the reason why they're overkill is actually because they're still a snail. On land, a snail's food is usually a leaf. Leaves are famous for not having a nervous system and, more importantly, for not being able to run away. But in the ocean, snails want to eat fish. And compared to leaves, fish are overpowered, since they, well, move. If a snail stabs a fish and that fish even has 5 seconds to react, it's gone. It will swim 100 feet away before the poison kicks in, and the snail just lost its dinner, and its weapon. To survive as a predator that moves like a glacier, you can't just be poisonous. You have to be a kill switch. To pull this off, the cone snail developed a specialized version of the standard snail tongue. Most snails have radula, which is basically a ribbon of tiny teeth used for scraping algae off rocks. But the cone snail took one of those teeth, made it hollow, added a barb, and turned it into a high-pressure harpoon. It's essentially a biological sniper rifle. The snail keeps this harpoon loaded inside a flexible tube called a proboscis. When a fish swims by, the snail fires. The harpoon hits with enough force to pierce scales and skin, locking the fish in place. And then, instead of just using one type of venom, the snail injects a toxin cocktail made of hundreds of different conotoxins. This doesn't just hurt the fish, it short-circuits its entire nervous system almost instantly. Every muscle in the fish's body contracts at once, turning it into a literal statue in a fraction of a second. The fish doesn't even have time to flop. It just goes from living to paralyzed before it even realized it's been hit. For a human, a sting from a cone snail is a weirdly quiet disaster. Some species actually inject a local anesthetic along with the toxins, so you might not even feel the harpoon. You just notice your arm going numb, and well, then you might not notice anything. But the most deadly part about the snail is that there's no counter. Because the venom is a shifting mix of hundreds of different chemicals, there is no anti-venom. There's no magic shot that makes it go away. If you get hit, your only survival strategy is to get hooked up to a ventilator. You basically have to wait on a medical pause menu while a machine breathes for you, hoping your body can filter the toxins out before your heart gives up. But wait, cone snails are still real snails? How is it that a single grain of salt is a death sentence for a garden snail, but these guys live in saltwater? Doesn't that break the rules of how snails snail? The secret is that these snails have bypassed the land snail's biggest weakness, osmosis. See, land snails are essentially porous bags of fresh water. When they touch salt, it acts like a biological vacuum, sucking the moisture out of their cells until they're nothing more than a floppy, sad crouton. It's a design flaw that makes them the easiest targets in the garden, but aquatic snails have spent millions of years optimizing their build. Instead of fighting the salt, they joined it. Their internal fluids are chemically balanced to match the salinity of the ocean. They don't lose water because their bodies expect it to be there. It's a biological patch that makes them immune to the one thing that would otherwise kill them. However, they aren't completely immune, because a cone snail wouldn't survive on a pile of straight dry salt. The osmosis here would hit all at once, and it would definitely kill it. But not all aquatic snails live in the saltwater. In fact, there are a few deadly aquatic snails that aren't even predators. What they instead are is a factory. This is a freshwater snail. It doesn't have a harpoon, it doesn't have a toxin cocktail. In fact, if you saw one on a lake, you'd probably think it was just as boring as the land snails on your porch. Even though freshwater snails aren't as graphic as getting stabbed by the world's deadliest venom, they actually kill hundreds of thousands more people each year than cone snails do. Yes, hundreds of thousands, but it's just indirectly. While they don't affect many people in the USA, freshwater snail deaths are rampant in Asia, Africa, and South America, causing nearly 200,000 deaths worldwide each year. Compare this to cone snails, which have 30 deaths ever. See, these snails are the primary hosts for a group of parasitic flatworms. They basically use the snail's body as a factory for reproducing, and the parasite will clone itself thousands of times before finding the perfect moment to leave. And then it turns the water itself into a weapon. Instead of hunting you down, the snail just exists. It releases thousands of microscopic larvae into the water every single day. You can't see them, you can't hear them, and you definitely won't feel them. These larvae don't need a high-pressure harpoon to get inside of you. They have evolved to literally melt through human skin. If you're swimming in a lake where these snails live, you don't even have to touch one of the snails to get infected. They don't even have to know you exist to kill you. This disease is called schistosomiasis, but most people just know it as snail fever. It is the second most devastating parasite disease on the planet, trailing only behind malaria. When the larvae enter your bloodstream, they hitch a ride through your heart and lungs until they find a permanent home in the veins surrounding your liver or bladder. There, they grow into adult worms, hook onto the walls of your blood vessels, and start a family. But adult worms aren't actually what kills you. The real danger is the thousands of eggs they release every single day. These eggs are designed to tear through your tissues to get back out of your body and into the water, but about half of them get trapped inside your organs forever. Your immune system sees these millions of tiny foreign objects lodged in your liver and intestines and absolutely panics. It triggers a massive, permanent inflammatory response that starts to scar your organs from the inside out. The results are gruesome. It leads to liver failure, bladder cancer, and a condition where your abdomen swells up with fluid until it looks like you've swallowed a basketball. It's a slow, systematic destruction of your body that currently affects over 240 million people. But why snails? Why would these parasites use snail bodies to multiply and not any other creature? Well, again, it's because these freshwater snails are still real snails. To a flatworm, a snail is essentially a stable, slow-moving factory, because snails are, well, slow. They don't move fast enough to leave the area, and they are abundant enough that a parasite is almost guaranteed to find a host. Snails live in the exact spots where this parasite's life cycle needs to happen. The shallow, slow-moving water where other animals, like humans, will bathe, wash clothes, and drink. So why is the water the factor for all of this horror? Why don't we have land snails that release toxic clouds or microscopic larvae into our lawns? It all comes down to the fact that water is the ultimate delivery system. Your venom stays in your shell, and your parasites stay in your gut. But in the water, the environment itself does the heavy lifting for you. This isn't possible for the snails on land because the parasites would have no real way to travel after multiplying in the snail. They can't release the aquatic larvae, and the larvae need to swim into the skin of a human to get inside. This is especially true in freshwater. Unlike the open ocean, humans must enter freshwater to survive. We drink it, we wash our clothes in it, and we bathe in it. We aren't just passing through, we are tethered to it. This creates a high-density contact zone where the snail doesn't have to be a fast hunter. It just has to sit in the one place it knows its prey will eventually show up because they have to. It's a perfect ecological trap. The parasites can survive and spread because the water keeps them hydrated and mobile, and the snails can afford to be slow because they know their targets are forced to come to them. It's strange, because while both these snails are actually insanely deadly towards humans, even if in two completely different ways, most of the danger stems from us. When it comes to the cone snail, humanity has a bit of a problem. We like shiny things. Their shells are incredibly beautiful, often covered in intricate, geometric patterns that make them a prime target for collectors and tourists. This leads to a weird, high-stakes situation where someone picks up a pretty souvenir on a reef, only to find out they just grabbed the deadliest shell in the world. And as I mentioned, once you're hit, we have no anti-venom, no sort of undo button. If you get stung, your survival doesn't depend on a doctor's skill, basically just hoping you survive. The only reason deaths are so low is because the species itself is quite rare, so usually people don't ever find them in the first place, or where they are present, people are well warned ahead of time. With the freshwater snails, the problem is even more persistent. In many parts of the world, people don't have the luxury of avoiding the water. Poverty and a lack of infrastructure mean that millions of people are forced to step into the delivery zone of these parasites every single day to wash clothes, bathe, or gather water. We can try to control it by dumping chemicals to kill the snails, but it's rarely a permanent fix. Snails are remarkably good at repopulating, and as long as the water is there, the cycle remains. It is a battle between human health and a biological loop that has been running perfectly for millions of years. It's a strange reality to accept. On land, the snail is a joke. A slow, slimy, harmless creature that loses to a sprinkle of table salt. But in the water, they use chemical warfare or become a shipyard for parasites. When you're surrounded by things that don't run away, like leaves and decaying wood, there is zero biological reason to waste massive amounts of energy building some crazy venom stabber. Evolution won't give you a kill switch if you're just eating a salad. Fortunately, if you're in the United States or Europe, most of us only ever see the ones that leave slime on the sidewalk. And while they might be a bit gross, after seeing what's happening in the water, I think we can all agree, we'll take the garden snails. Thank you for watching, and big thanks to Fishing Clash again for sponsoring this video. Make sure to use my code or click the link in the description. And if you want to see our video about why most animals got rid of armor, check out this video here.